Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The Assembly Committee on Government Affairs will now come to order. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblywoman Black.
Here.
Assemblywoman Brown May.
Here.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman.
Oops, here.
Assemblywoman Duran.
Here.
Assemblyman Ellison.
Present.
Assemblywoman Martinez.
Present.
Assemblyman Matthews.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur.
Here.
Assemblywoman Thomas.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres. Vice Chair Torres.
Here.
Chair Flores.
Thank you. And there are 13 members present and 1 absent. And if we could just mark Chair Flores absent, excused, and present if he does arrive. I would like to welcome everyone to today's meeting of the Assembly Committee on Government Affairs. Today we're going to hold a hearing on 2 bills. We will have a hearing on SB 37 and SB 46. As you know, the legislative building remains closed to the public, and so all of the committee meetings are currently being held virtually. Committee members and staff and everyone else participating either through Zoom or by telephone. For committee members, if you could just please remember the following: silence or turn off all electronics and phones during the meeting, and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to minimize the background noise. Please leave your cameras on so that we maintain a quorum throughout the remainder of today's meeting. Please state your name for the record every time you unmute your mic to help keep the accurate records and meeting minutes. Members of the public who wish to testify or present public comment will have the option to call in or submit written testimony or comments. I would encourage those wishing to offer testimony on a measure to do so in writing to ensure we receive your full statement. In the interest of time, testimony in support, opposition, and neutral will be limited to 2 minutes. Anyone can submit testimony in writing by using the submit button option on Nellis that is located on the web page for today's meeting, or by email to asmga@asm.state.nv.us. To make the best use of our limited time together, please avoid repeating points that have already been made, and feel free to say ditto or I agree with the previous caller. Additionally, please avoid reading extremely long testimony. Instead, summarize and focus on the key points of the testimony and provide your written testimony to the committee staff at your earliest convenience. At this time, we will now open the hearing on SB 37. I believe that we have some members from the Attorney General's office here to present.
Good morning, Vice Chair Torres and members of the committee. My name is Christine Jones-Brady. I am the Second Assistant Attorney General with the Office of the Nevada Attorney General. I am joined by my colleagues, Jessica Adair, who is the Chief of Staff, Kyle George, the First Assistant Attorney General, who also gave this testimony in the Senate, and also by phone, our Chief of Investigations, William Scott, and we have also on video Mr. Michael Kovac, who's our Chief Prosecutor. So by way of background, under current law, before a district attorney can refer a matter to the Office of the Attorney General for investigation or prosecution, they must make a request to the County Commission, and the County Commission must adopt a resolution authorizing the district attorney to do so. Historically, district attorneys have utilized this mechanism when there is either a real or perceived conflict of interest that would bar their office from investigating or prosecuting a matter. More rarely, the district attorneys also have referred matters to our office when they lack resources to investigate or prosecute a case. Unfortunately, because county commission meetings are public, placing a matter on a county commission agenda for referral to the AG's office also places the subject of an investigation on notice that they are being investigated. Any item that sufficiently describe that is sufficiently descriptive to conform to open meeting laws would also necessarily be sufficient to destroy the confidentiality of an investigation. Additionally, if the conflict arises because the matter involves a county commissioner, a district attorney is placed in the untenable position of going before the commission to discuss a legal issue with one of their own. This bill seeks to resolve this conflict and allow law enforcement to maintain the confidentiality of investigations by allowing the district attorneys to directly refer matters to the Attorney General's office when they deem it necessary. The Office of the Attorney General, however, is cognizant and mindful of county commissioners' roles in maintaining their county budgets. For that reason, this bill provides that the district attorney may only bypass the county commission approval process if the Attorney General's office informs the DA that it will not seek reimbursement costs and expenses associated with the referral of the matter. We believe the solution respects the constitutional and statutory duties granted to both district attorneys and county commissions. The Office of the Attorney General has conferred with stakeholders, including district attorneys, public defenders, the ACLU, and the Nevada Association of Counties. None of these stakeholders have articulated any concerns with this bill. We stand ready to answer all committee questions on SB 37. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Vice Chair Torres, and thank you for bringing forward this language. I'm confused about one area, and that's under Section 1, subsection 1, about line 10. The Attorney General must inform the district attorney whether the Office of the Attorney General will request reimbursement. Was that before the case starts? Is that, let's say that before the case even starts, it doesn't seem to be a problem, but then as the case continues, it becomes larger and larger and larger. Is there a way to revisit that request of information?
Christine Jones Brady, for the record, through Vice Chair Torres to Committee Assemblywoman Anderson. Thank you. So I think that to answer that question, we probably could go back and talk to the district attorney if we needed to. However, that would be in a rare occasion. What we do, and I'll let our Chief Kovac speak to this issue, before we take a case, we analyze that very thoroughly and we determine upfront whether or not we are going to require or need financial assistance prior to taking on a case. In most cases, we try not to, but in some cases, when, for example, if we know up front there's going to be a lot of expert costs or other witness travel, sometimes witnesses or victims may be out of state, and we know up front that a lot of travel will be required, we might request that up front. But once we've started the case, usually, I mean, as all cases go, there are sometimes added expenses, but that's usually encapsulated in our budget already. But I will refer for Chief Kovac and also for Jessica Adair, who manages our Chief Financial Officer, to weigh in on those questions as well.
Thank you, Jessica Adair, for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson. I just want to note that provision that you referenced is an existing statute. So we're not proposing to change any of the current procedures in regards to how the county and the AG's office decide to pay for costs. What we don't want to do is agree to take a referral from a county, from a DA, and then send a county commission a very large bill that they didn't have any way to agree to that or to build it into their budget. So that is why we added the provision that the DAs can send us a referral directly. But if we agree to take the case, then we'll cover the costs. But thank you. I do want to note that decision, that process where the AG's office and the DA confer about the cost of a case is existing statute, and we're not proposing to make any changes to that.
Thank you. And so a follow-up as well. This might also, it's not listed in the language currently. And thank you though for that clarification. If there is a disagreement between the DA and the AG's office about how to proceed, actually that has nothing to do with this bill. So maybe I'll have that conversation with you offline, just assuming that there's like an agreement and stuff as to how to handle that, but that's not in this language. So thank you very much, Vice Chair, and thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson and Ms. Adair and Jones Brady for your responses. I believe we have another question from Assemblywoman Thomas.
Good morning, Vice Chair, and thank you for this opportunity. And thank the AG's office for the presentation. I am very impressed. I have a quick question. When you, during your presentation, Ms. Brady, mentioned about the county commissioners' meetings being public, which we all know, and there is a case that may not destroy the investigation, but put people on notice that are being investigated. I was just wondering, how many cases have you been privy to that this has happened? So do you have data to support this narrative?
I'm gonna, just a couple of comments, and then I see Kyle George is nodding, and so I'll refer it to him and also to Chief Kovac. Usually, if that's part of the problem and why we're running this bill, we're asking for this bill, is that if we do see that there are confidentiality issues, we won't get the case, even if it would probably be a good idea for us to get it. We can't risk the confidentiality of an investigation in that manner. So in terms of data, I will turn it over because I saw Mr. George nodding, and also Mr. Kovac may have more numbers on specifics where that has happened.
Thank you. For the record, Kyle George, First Assistant Attorney General. Assemblywoman, the answer to your question is we don't have a lot of data on that because right now the mechanism in place precludes it from happening. So under current law, what the practice is usually one DA's office will go to another DA's office and ask if they will take over a conflict case as a courtesy. It's a very informal process. It isn't an ideal process because it shifts the burden of cost and the expenditure of resources from one county to another. But that is in practice the way it's usually done right now. What we envision with this is that on the rare occasion there is a need to refer to the Attorney General's office, there's a mechanism to do so in appropriate circumstances, of course, that avoids publicizing the existence of a case before it's the appropriate time to do so.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Considine.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill. Actually, most of my questions have been answered by the folks the Assembly folks who answered or asked questions prior. So I just wanted, I guess, to confirm all this in my mind is currently, if there is a situation where the confidentiality is such that there won't be a request to the county, in those cases right now, the AG just doesn't take it and then it's left with the DA. But what this bill will do is allow a conflict case to be referred, and the AG is then accepting the cost for all of that because they will not go back to the county for any reimbursement on it. And they will fully understand, because now that shifts the burden from where that money is coming from. They sort of fully understand that whichever way this goes, the Attorney General's office is going to be the one that does not get reimbursed. Am I right?
Christine
record.
Jones Brady, for the record, through the Vice Chair Torres to Assemblywoman Constantine. Yes, for the record, that is what we currently do. And we, as Ms. Adair also referenced before, we confer with the DAs ahead of time while they're in the process of referring the case. We consult and talk about where are the witnesses, what kind of experts are needed, what are the costs, the travel costs, et cetera. And so we do that calculation up front, and we have yet, under the current system, which that part is already in place, we have yet to go back to them and ask them for money if we have not agreed up front that they will pay for some or all of the costs.
Thank you. Quick follow-up, Madam Chair.
Please follow up.
And then this bill, should it pass, would be valid for any county.
Christine Jones Brady, for the record, through Vice Chair Torres to Assemblywoman, yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your answers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any additional questions? Seeing no additional questions, we can go ahead and start to hear testimony broadcast. If we could please go to the first testimony in support of Senate Bill 37.
To testify in support of Senate Bill 37, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 648, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Vice Chair Torres, members of the Assembly Government Affairs Committee. My name is John Jones, here on behalf of the Nevada District Attorneys Association. That's JOHNJONES. We are in full support of SB 37 and want to thank the Attorney General's Office for bringing the bill. This bill will significantly reduce the time it takes to transfer a case to the Attorney General's office when the Attorney General is not seeking reimbursement for the prosecution. It's important to note that the decision whether to accept or reject a prosecution request or whether to seek reimbursement is the sole decision of the Attorney General's office. And when we submit a case to the Attorney General's office, we send a justification for the request to them when they make their decision. Again, the Nevada District Attorneys Association is in full support of SB 37. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. We can go to the next caller in support of Senate Bill 37.
Chair, there are no more callers in support at this time.
Thank you, broadcast. And are there any callers in the queue to testify in opposition to SB 37?
To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 37, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. And do we have anybody in the queue to testify in neutral to SB 37?
To testify in the neutral position on Senate Bill 37, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in the neutral position at this time.
Thank you. I think everybody that was going to call in must have heard the testimony from the AG's office, and their questions were all answered. And they knew they didn't have to call in today, but they're very excited about SB 37. Are there any final remarks from the sponsors or questions? All right, at this time, we will close the hearing on SB 37. And at this time, we will open the hearing on SB 46, which revises provisions relating to the Office of the Attorney General. I know that we have several members of the Attorney General's office that are here to present SB 46.
Good morning again to Vice Chair Torres and also members of the committee. For the record, my name again is Christine Jones Brady. I am the Second Assistant Attorney General with the Office of the Nevada Attorney General. I am joined by my colleagues, Chief of Staff Jessica Adair, First Assistant Kyle George, who gave this testimony in the Senate, and also by our Chief of Investigations, William Scott, and our Chief of Prosecutions, I think he's still on the line, Michael Kovac. SB 46 touches on several different statutes, but they are distilled in its essence. All the provisions of this bill pertain to the safety of personnel of the Office of the Attorney General. Over the years, the Nevada Legislature has provided protections to numerous government officials whose personal safety may be at risk due to the nature of their services to the state. For example, judges, social workers, code enforcement officers, deputy district attorneys, and public defenders may take steps to keep their property and tax information confidential, but Attorney General staff is conspicuously absent from this list. Sections 1 through 4 of this bill allow the Office of the Attorney General lawyers to seal their property records with the county recorder, tax assessor, their voter records with the Secretary of State, and to display an alternate address on their driver's license. These protections are consistent with those currently extended to numerous other state and county employees, but not AGO personnel. I would note that the language in these provisions apply to any person employed by the Office of the Attorney General who prosecutes or defends actions on behalf of the state of Nevada or any agency in the executive department of the state government. This construction is purposeful. Over the past year, state agencies across the nation have been harassed, threatened, or doxxed for serving their states and communities. In Nevada, several officials were explicitly threatened, and the Office of the Attorney General, in the Office of the Attorney General, Deputy Attorney Generals from our Personnel Division, our Criminal Division, Taxation Division, Public Safety Division, and Solicitor General's Office have either all expressed concern for their personal safety at various points during the past year, or they've been personally threatened. Given the Attorney General's role as Nevada's lawyer, our attorneys become the focal point for the ire against the state itself. For this reason, our proposed bill language is not limited to the prosecution division. The last provision of this bill, Section 5, pertains to the sworn and badged officers of our investigations division. Under current law enforcement agencies, including sheriff's offices, DMV police, the state fire marshal, are authorized to equip their vehicles with lights and sirens that readily identify them as law enforcement. The Office of the Attorney General is not on this list. As a result, the investigators of the Attorney General's office are often put in the position of arriving on the scene in unmarked vehicles, routing or blocking traffic using vehicles with no obvious indicia of law enforcement, while wearing badges and guns but no uniform. The likelihood of misidentification is high and unnecessarily increases the risk to both officers and the public during an encounter. Emergency lights and sirens on Attorney General vehicles would permit investigators to visibly convey their status as law enforcement officers for some distance and provide some safeguards against misidentification. Additionally, providing statutory authority for these peace officers to install lights and sirens on their vehicles will put them on equal footing with other law enforcement agencies in the state. Thank you again for this committee's time and effort on this bill. We are happy to answer any questions.
Members, are there any questions? Assemblywoman Thomas. And then I will follow that with Assemblywoman Dickman. I apologize, I just saw your note.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And again, thank you, Ms. Brady, for bringing forth this this bill. I think that it is really important to have protection for the Office of Attorney General, just like the Office of the District Attorney and so forth, for all those agencies that require protection. My biggest question right now has to do with, during your presentation, you said any employee any person employed by the Office of Attorney General. So my question has to deal with support staff. Does this include support staff, i.e. Your secretaries, your clerks, your process servers, your investigators?
Christine Jones Brady for the record, to Assemblywoman Thomas through.
Directly to the member, Ms. Jones Brady.
Okay, thank you. So the plain language of the law reads yes to any person, and that would include support staff. The reason why that may be important is sometimes okay, I will defer to Kyle George on this.
I apologize for interrupting, Ms. Brady. For the record, Kyle George, First Assistant Attorney General. The language of the bill is limited to those who prosecute or defend actions, which would only be limited to attorneys in these roles.
And if I may, we're going to tag team this answer, Jessica Adair for the record. The reason for that is when you are, as an attorney, you are making a public filing with the court, your name and your bar number are on that document. So that is why we want to keep that person's then home address confidential. So a secretary is not going to have the same level of publicly available information when they publicly file a document that doesn't associate their name and their bar number, obviously, because they are not a member of the state bar.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Assemblywoman Dickman.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. Appreciate this. And I really like this bill. But my question is, since the Attorney General is the top law enforcement official in the state, I'm wondering why we're not affording all law enforcement officers the same protections. Wouldn't the officer who's on the front lines every day, who interacts with the public every day, who arrested the dangerous criminal, be just as much at risk as the attorney who prosecutes them?
I'll take this one.
Okay.
You can go ahead, Ms. Brady.
No, I'll defer to you, Mr. George.
Thank you. For the record, Kyle George, First Assistant. Assemblywoman, under existing other law enforcement officers do have that ability. The Attorney General's office is the only office that does not under current law. So right now, sheriff's offices, police departments, DAs, city attorneys have it, but personnel in the Attorney General's office do not. So the purpose of this bill is to bring us an equal footing with other law enforcement agencies and to get what they already have.
Just for the record, if you look on page 3, section 2, line 42, that's sub E, it states any peace officer or retired peace officer.
Follow up, Madam Vice Chair, please.
Follow up.
So I would direct you to section 1, which refers to the recorder's office. Does not have that same line as section 2E. And that's where the police officers are missing. And I would respectfully ask if you would be open to amending this bill to add the police officers in section 1.
Jessica Adair for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman. I would like to confer with law enforcement before making that commitment. I don't anticipate that we would have any opposition to that, but I would like to discuss with law enforcement prior to on the record agreeing to that amendment.
And if I may follow up as well, Assemblywoman, on page 3 of the bill, lines. Pardon me while I track it down again. I just lost it. I do believe they are line 5, item J. Any inspector, officer, investigator employed by this state or political subdivision designated by his employer. I'm sorry, that's code enforcement. Yeah, we are receptive to that, subject to internal discussions and discussion with law enforcement about whether or not they have that in other parts of statute as well.
Yeah, section 1 refers to the recorder's office, and they are not included in there. So I really appreciate the discussion, and feel free to contact me. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you for the questions, Assemblywoman Zickman. And I do want to remind the committee that we did have a bill that was similar to that already for this legislative session. There was quite a bit of opposition from our committee members on that additional amendment. So I would encourage the Attorney General's office to reach out to fellow committee members and see if that would be something that all members of the committee would be open to, because I think that there's a lot of good parts of this legislation. I would hate for us to see it amended to a point where our colleagues would not be comfortable with this piece of legislation. At this time, members, are there any questions? Oh, Mr. George.
I'm sorry, Madam Vice Chair. NRS 247560 sub 1A does in fact provide that law enforcement does have the ability to keep records, county recorded records, confidential. So it looks like it is an existing law. And to repeat it, that's NRS 247560-1A.
Hey, Cal, this is Chief Scott. If I may add a comment.
Yes, Mr. Scott.
Yes, for the record, my name is Chief William Scott, Nevada Attorney General's Office. Yes, the investigators at the Nevada Attorney General's Office are CAD Category 2 post-certified investigators, so they would fall underneath that existing NRS that First Assistant Kyle George just spoke of.
All right, thank you. Members, are there any additional questions? All right, seeing none, we will now begin to hear testimony in support of SB 46. Broadcast, if you could go to the phones, please.
To testify in support of SB 46, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in support of SB 46 at this time.
Thank you. If we could now go to testimony in opposition of SB 46.
To testify in opposition of SB 46, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you. And if we could go, if there's anyone willing to testify in neutral on SB 46.
To testify in the neutral position on SB 46, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers in the neutral position at this time.
Thank you. And from the Attorney General's office, do you have any additional remarks to close?
No, Madam Chair. Vice Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate the Attorney General's office for being present with us today. I will now close the hearing on SB 46. This time we will move to our public comment portion of today's meeting. May we have the first caller in public comment today, please?
To take place in the public comment queue, please press star 9 now. Caller with the last 3 digits of 556. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Anne Marie Grant, ANNEMARIE GRANT. My brother Thomas Purdy was 38 years old when he had a mental health crisis at the Peppermill Casino in Reno. And Reno police showed up and hog-tied him for 40-plus minutes, never called like a paddy wagon or anything else, just put him in the regular cruiser, which their policy says they're supposed to call the paddy wagon. They then brought him to Washoe County Jail, where Reno police actually, my brother was able to get one leg out of the hobble. He wasn't kicking anybody or anything. Ed's never alleged that he was kicking anybody at that point. Reno PD took him out of the cruiser, and then they put the hobble back on him even tighter seconds before sheriffs carried him into the jail, where he was then still hogtied, told them he couldn't breathe, told them that he had major lung surgery, which he had a collapsed lung prior, that he was going to die, and that he needed an ambulance. The nurse asked him again, why can't you breathe, sir? And he told her, I told you I had major lung surgery. I'm going to die. You're going to kill me. And sure enough, they did. They put him face down, 4 deputies on top of him, his legs, knees, back, neck. He was no threat to anybody, not one single person. He needed a hospital, not a jail cell, to be asphyxiated to death. Please support bills that promote transparency and accountability, like SB 50 and AB 157. Please do not support bills like AB 92 or AB 127, which proposes hiding police identities from civilians who they are meant to serve. Passage of AB 127 would mean lower accountability for police officers who murder or assault civilians. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. Broadcast, the next caller, please.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no more callers at this time.
Thank you. And thank you, committee, for showing up on time and making sure that we were ready for today's hearing and doing our homework. I just want to remind the committee that tomorrow we will be meeting at 9 a.m. So on Thursday, April 15th. I believe that there will be some updates about us possibly meeting in person that should be in the committee's email. So please make sure that you check that, as I know that there will be several changes going on as the building begins to reopen to members of the public physically, although we will continue to be open virtually and physically as well. Additionally, I want to remind the committee that we will have 2 bill hearings tomorrow on SB 28 and on SB 47. So I encourage you to read those ahead of time to be prepared for committee. Thank you for doing your good work. As there are no more individuals wishing to provide public comment, we will move to adjournment. This committee is now adjourned.